Hello, everybody. Welcome to the IT Skills. Thank you for joining us on day two of our Azure Administrator course, AZ-104. Hopefully, you were able to watch day one and understand what this is all about. Sooner, we're gonna have a labs associated with each section, each module. So I recommend you watch everything, the theory, understand how it works, all the exam requirement, and then when the lab comes in, then you can follow along by creating a trial tenant. So without further ado, we're gonna give it to our presenter for day two. But before that, please hit the like button, subscribe. It's not gonna cost you anything to do that. It will help the channel. We have 94% of you who watch the channel do not subscribe. And that could be, again, maybe our fault for not saying subscribe, but we thought it was just going to be a given since, a lot of you seem to like the content. So we ask you, please subscribe so we can continue bringing you this video. Without your support, it will be hard to bring you this courses. It takes a lot of time. So let's get started. I'll now give to our presenter. And if there's any question, please put in the comment. Thank you. Yeah, and I forgot to say this lab is all about administering governance and compliance, which is extremely important to Azure, which is extremely important to every admin. So let's get started. Go ahead, presenter.
Welcome to I Teach Skills. I'm your instructor, Ali. Welcome to today's session on Administer Governance and Compliance. Think of it as the backbone of Azure, ensuring everything runs smoothly like a well-oiled machine. Now let's explore how governance sets rules for your cloud environment, similar to laws in a city, while compliance ensures you're meeting those regulations effectively. Welcome to our session on administering governance and compliance in Azure. Today, we'll explore how you can effectively manage governance and ensure compliance within your Azure environment. Think of it as setting the rules and checks for a well-run digital city. First, let's discuss the importance of establishing clear policies. These are like the laws that guide behavior and operations. Moving on to role-based access control, RBAC. Think of RBAC as assigning different levels of responsibility in our digital city based on roles. Building on that, we delve into Azure Policy, which acts like automated traffic cops, ensuring everything runs smoothly by enforcing rules. Finally, let's wrap up with compliance management using tools like Azure Security Center and Azure Policy Compliance Dashboard. These help you monitor adherence to standards, just as regular inspections ensure a city meets its safety codes. Today, we are diving into the intricacies of cloud management by learning how to configure subscriptions and Azure policies. Think of configuring Azure Policy like setting up rules for a game board to ensure everyone plays fair. It helps maintain order within your digital environment. Similarly, role-based access control, RBAC, is akin to assigning different roles in a play. Each actor knows their part and accesses only what they need. As we apply these concepts practically, you'll engage with Lab 02A, where managing subscriptions and RBAC becomes hands-on, followed by Lab 02B that focuses on governance through Azure Policy. Building upon that understanding, we'll move into Lab 03A, a deeper dive into handling Azure resources directly via the portal. Think of subscriptions as your financial budget for cloud services, where you control costs by allocating resources. Now let's explore how configuring Azure Resource Manager, resources organizes these into manageable groups that simplify deployment and management. Building on that, lets you define everything in code, which enables versioning and repeatability, much like a recipe ensures the same dish every time. We'll start by exploring how to navigate and implement Azure Resource Manager, subscriptions. Think of a subscription as your access key to the Azure cloud services. Identifying regions is crucial because it's like choosing where your data center will be. Each region has unique features and capabilities. Next, implementing these subscriptions involves setting them up with specific quotas and limits tailored to your needs. Imagine this as your budget for cloud usage. You'll also need to obtain a subscription to kickstart this process. Moving forward, creating resource groups is akin to organizing your digital filing cabinet. It helps you manage related resources collectively. Determining service limits and quotas ensures that you don't exceed your allocated resources. similar to keeping within your credit limit on a card. Creating an Azure resource hierarchy then allows for structured management, much like building floors in a multi-story office building. Now let's dive into resource tagging, which is akin to labeling files for easy retrieval and organization. This helps in tracking usage and managing cost efficiently. Speaking of cost management, using alerts, budgets, and Azure Advisor recommendations act as your financial advisor, keeping you informed about spending trends so you can make smarter decisions. Finally, configuring management groups allows you to apply governance policies across multiple subscriptions, similar to setting company-wide rules for different departments. To recap the learning objectives, we've covered managing Azure identities and governance, including how to configure resource locks. These act as security gates to your resources, and applying tags on resources for better categorization. Additionally, we looked at cost management strategies using various tools available within Azure. Imagine a vast network where each city is a data center, forming what we call regions. These regions aren't just clusters of cities, they offer flexibility and scalability in how services are deployed. Think of them as your services backbone, preserving data residency by allowing you to select locations close to your users. It's important to be aware that not all services can deploy universally across these regions due to regional deployment availability. Some global services transcend region boundaries, operating independently. For robustness, regions are often paired for high availability, ensuring that if one fails, the other stands ready. Currently, there are over 60 regions spread across more than 140 countries worldwide. To ensure security and clear billing boundaries, only identities within Azure subscriptions that are either part of Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, or in a directory trusted by Azure AD can create subscriptions. These subscriptions act as logical units linked to an Azure account. This setup helps maintain both security integrity and precise billing management. Let's explore the different subscription usage options available. Topic: Free. The free plan includes a $200 credit for the first 30 days and provides limited access for 12 months, allowing you to test out services at no initial cost. Moving on to topic: Pay-as-you-go. This charges monthly based on your usage, with potential discounts through a Microsoft Cloud Solutions provider partner, making it ideal for small to medium businesses. Now let's look at topic: Enterprise One, which is an agreement that offers discounts for new licenses and software assurance, targeting larger enterprise-scale organizations. Finally, we have the topic: Student Plan, providing $100 in credits for 12 months but requires verification of student access. Obtain a subscription enterprise agreement. Customers make an upfront monetary commitment and consume services throughout the year. Think of it as planting seeds that grow over time, providing a steady harvest of benefits. Resellers provide a simple, flexible way to purchase cloud services. Imagine them as your personal shopping guides for digital solutions. Partners can design and implement your Azure cloud solution, acting like architects who build tailored digital environments for you. Meanwhile, a personal free account lets you start right away, giving you a sandbox to experiment before diving in. Imagine organizing your office supplies. In Azure, topic: Create resource groups. You have a central container called a resource group that holds related items like web apps, databases, and VMs together. Think of it as a drawer where everything connects neatly, making management much easier. While these groups can house various resource types from different regions, remember they are static. Once named, their names remain the same and nesting is off limits. So, if your project evolves, you can shuffle resources across groups, but each must stay singular in its group. For instance, a web app and database might share one drawer, while VMs or storage solutions occupy others. Consider your cloud services as having an allowance, much like the candy budget at home. Each service comes with a default limit, a subscription quota, that acts like your initial allowance. Tracking current usage is key, just as monitoring how much candy you've eaten helps manage what's left for later. If your needs grow and these limits seem too tight, opening a free support case can be likened to asking for an increased allowance up to the published maximums. Imagine organizing a company's digital assets like setting up folders on your computer. Azure Resource Hierarchy allows you to create management groups that sit above individual subscriptions, much like organizing files into folders. Now let's explore how these management groups can help target policies and budgets across multiple subscriptions, cascading down the hierarchy for efficient compliance and cost reporting by business units or teams. To ensure stability in this structure, consider applying resource locks at various levels, subscription, resource group, or even individual resources, to prevent unauthorized changes. Think of it this way: applying resource tagging in Azure is like labeling your files on a computer. It provides metadata that logically organizes your resources. Each tag consists of a simple name-value pair, acting as an easy identifier for specific attributes or categories associated with your resource. This system proves especially useful when rolling up billing information, allowing you to easily track costs related to different projects or departments. Think of managing costs like budgeting for a road trip. Every mile and stop has its own price tag. In Azure, this means recognizing that different resources, locations, and data transfers come with varying costs. To stretch your dollar further, you can prepay using Azure reserved instances or capitalize on existing investments through Azure Hybrid Benefit. Additionally, staying ahead involves setting up alerts, defining budgets, and following the sage advice of Azure Advisor. Let's recap the learning journey on configuring subscriptions. Think of it like setting up a new garden. You need to plan, control, and organize everything properly. In Azure Cost Management, imagine you're budgeting for your garden expenses, making sure every dollar is accounted for. Now, reflect on those check your knowledge questions. They're like quick soil tests ensuring everything's in top shape. Moving forward, let's dive into the sandbox practice where you can plan and manage costs as if experimenting with different plants. By controlling and organizing Azure resources through Azure Resource Manager, it's akin to using a gardening toolset for maximum efficiency. Using this manager in a sandbox environment is like testing out your tools before applying them to your entire garden. Imagine setting up rules for a garden to keep it thriving. Azure Policy works similarly by managing resources in your cloud environment. Just like a set of gardening guidelines ensures everything grows harmoniously, Azure Policies ensure that all your cloud resources comply with company standards and regulations. Now let's explore how you can define these policies within the Azure platform. Let's dive into understanding how to effectively implement Azure Policy. Think of it as setting up rules for your cloud environment to ensure everything runs smoothly according to your organization standards. Now, let's explore the creation of these policies. Imagine crafting a recipe that guides every ingredient or resource in its proper place and proportion. Moving on to our demonstration, we'll see how creating policy definitions works like drafting blueprints before construction begins. Building on that, we create and scope initiative definitions, similar to assigning roles to different teams to achieve a common goal. Finally, determining compliance is akin to conducting an inspection post-construction to ensure everything meets the initial blueprint specifications. As we wrap up, remember managing Azure identities and governance is pivotal in maintaining order across your cloud environment, much like a conductor overseeing an orchestra. Azure Policies empower you to create, assign, and manage policies that run evaluations and identify non-compliant resources. Think of it as a guardian ensuring your cloud environment follows rules consistently. The advantages are clear: enforcement and compliance at scale, plus automated remediation. Consider scenarios like specifying allowed resource types or virtual machine SKUs, restricting locations, enforcing required tags, or auditing whether Azure Backup is enabled for VMs. Creating Azure Policies is like setting the rules of a game to ensure fair play within your cloud environment. Think of it this way: a policy initiative is akin to creating a team strategy, bundling together multiple policy definitions which are essentially individual plays or rules that guide actions. The scope and assignment of these policies determine where they apply, like assigning players to specific positions on the field, and assessing compliance ensures everyone follows the playbook. Imagine you're setting up rules in a classroom. First, we'll show how to assign a policy in Azure, similar to setting a rule for students. Next, let's dive into creating and assigning an initiative definition. Think of it like grouping several classroom rules under one big project. Moving forward, we'll check for compliance, just as you'd ensure everyone is following the rules. Now, consider checking for remediation tasks, akin to identifying who needs a little extra help or resources. Finally, we'll conclude by removing your policy and initiative, much like archiving outdated classroom guidelines. Think of configuring Azure Policy like setting rules in your home that everyone follows. It's about establishing guidelines to ensure all resources within Azure adhere to your organization's standards, just as house rules help maintain order at home. Now let's explore how these policies can be checked and validated with questions designed to test your understanding, ensuring you're ready for real-world application. Building on that, developing a cloud governance strategy is akin to crafting a master plan for city management. It involves aligning resources with business objectives while maintaining compliance and security standards in Azure. Think of RBAC like a security team at a party, where each person is given different access depending on their role. Now let's explore how configuring role-based access control allows us to grant permissions based on job functions within an organization. Building on that, we can tailor access precisely, ensuring individuals only reach what they need for their specific tasks. We are diving into the world of role-based access control, or RBAC, which is crucial for managing who gets what in your cloud environment. Think of it like a bouncer at a club. Azure RBAC decides who can access what resources and what they can do with them. Now let's explore the difference between Azure RBAC roles and Azure AD roles. While both control permissions, RBAC is about resource access within Azure, whereas AD focuses on identity management. Building on that, creating a role definition in Azure is like setting up rules for who gets into different areas of your cloud club. You then assign these roles with role assignments to specific users or groups, tailoring their access just right. It's essential to apply RBAC authentication to ensure secure access control. As we wrap up, let's recap the demonstration of Azure RBAC, which showcased how you manage identities and governance, key skills for effectively handling access in Azure. Think of it this way. Azure RBAC roles act like a detailed security guard controlling access to various resources within Azure. Topic: Azure RBAC roles. These roles offer fine-grained access management, allowing you to specify permissions at multiple levels, such as subscription or resource group, tailored for managing Azure resources directly. You can view and manage these roles through several tools like the Azure Portal, Azure CLI, PowerShell, and REST API. Now let's explore Azure AD roles. Topic: Azure AD roles. These focus on managing access to objects within Azure Active Directory itself, at the tenant level. Accessing role information is possible via the Azure Portal, Microsoft 365 Admin Portal, and tools like Microsoft Graph or Azure AD PowerShell for Graph. Both types offer numerous built-in roles, but you also have the flexibility to create custom ones to suit specific needs. Think of it this way. Role definitions in Azure are like the rulebooks that tell you who can do what. We have specific roles like owner or contributor with varying levels of permissions to perform operations, and even custom ones where we can decide our own set of actions. Now let's explore how these permissions work. They allow certain actions while explicitly denying others through not actions, ensuring security by limiting unauthorized changes. Think of a role assignment process as matching keys to locks. We assign roles such as owner, contributor, or reader to users, groups, or service principals, enabling access at different scopes like subscriptions or resource groups. For instance, the backup operator might have specific permissions within a marketing group, while a contributor in the resource group can manage resources more broadly. In Azure, imagine role-based access control, the RBAC, as a way to manage who gets backstage passes at a concert. Global admins are like the headliners with all access rights, while tenant application admins focus on specific apps. Billing admins handle ticket sales, and user access admins manage crowd control. Now let's explore Azure RBAC owner roles. They're the VIPs for root management groups and subscriptions, having full reign over resources. Contributors can tweak settings but not add or remove access, akin to stage crew members who adjust lights and sound. Readers are like fans from the audience, they can see everything but can't change a thing. Delving into user access admin roles, these individuals have elevated backstage pass rights for fine-tuning who enters specific areas within Azure's vast venue. Whether it's at the root level of management groups or down to individual subscriptions and resource groups, their role is crucial in ensuring everyone is where they need to be. Let's explore how to manage access using Azure Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. First, locate the access control blade within your Azure portal. Now examine the existing role permissions to understand what actions are allowed. Finally, add a new role assignment to grant specific users or groups access as needed. In today's recap, we've learned how to configure Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. Imagine RBAC as a bouncer at a club, deciding who gets in based on their role. We explored creating roles for Azure resources using this access control system. Now let's dive into checking our understanding with some knowledge questions and additional study material. Next, we focused on managing access to an Azure subscription using RBAC, like setting permissions for different members of a team. Finally, securing your Azure resources is crucial, and we practice this in a sandbox environment, a safe space where you can experiment without risking real assets. In this lab, we're diving into managing subscriptions and role-based access control, RBAC, to ensure you have a firm grip on who does what within your Azure environment. Think of RBAC as assigning different access cards at an office building. Each card grants specific entry permissions. Moving forward, Lab 02B will guide us through governance using Azure Policy, which is like setting the rules for how and when these access cards can be used. Building on that foundation, we'll transition to Lab 03A, where you'll learn how to manage Azure resources directly in the portal, essentially becoming the architect of your digital infrastructure. To enhance the management of Azure resources, Contoso is focusing on two key areas: using management groups for their subscriptions and granting specific permissions for support request submissions. Topic: Implement management groups. First up, we're diving into setting up management groups to organize these subscriptions efficiently. Think of it like sorting books into different sections in a library. Next, we'll tackle creating custom RBAC roles tailored to user needs. This is akin to crafting unique keys that unlock only certain doors for specific people. Topic: Create custom RBAC roles. Lastly, assigning these roles ensures each user has just the right level of access, much like giving out permission slips for different school activities. Let's imagine our computer system as a bustling city. At the heart, you have the Central Processing Unit, CPU, akin to the City Hall managing operations and decisions. Surrounding it are memory modules, like warehouses storing goods and information for quick access. The I/O devices can be thought of as the communication channels and public transport systems, connecting different parts of our digital metropolis. Now let's explore how data flows through these components, much like traffic on city roads. In Lab 02B, we are diving into managing governance through Azure Policy to enhance Contoso's resource management. Topic: Objective. Our goals include efficiently tagging resource groups and ensuring proper compliance by only allowing tagged infrastructure resources in those groups. Moving forward, let's break down the tasks. First, create and assign tags via the Azure portal. Next, enforce this tagging using an Azure policy to maintain compliance. Finally, apply these policies effectively for consistent governance. In today's lesson, we're diving into an architecture diagram focusing on cloud infrastructure. Think of it as constructing a building where each piece must fit perfectly for everything to work smoothly. We start with identifying key roles like the infrastructure cloud shell storage that form the foundation, akin to setting up your main support beams and walls. Moving over to task management, we're implementing Azure policy requirements such as tagging resources, a process similar to labeling every tool in your toolbox so nothing gets misplaced. Finally, when creating a new storage account, imagine inheriting traits from a parent resource group if something's missing, just like a child might inherit traits from their parents. In Lab 03A, we dive into managing Azure resources using the Azure portal. Think of it this way: provisioning resources is like setting up a new office space. You need to organize everything efficiently. Let's explore how to create resource groups as your main containers and deploy resources within them for optimal organization. Moving on, consider how shifting resources between these groups is akin to reallocating assets in different departments based on needs. Now let's look at safeguarding important data. Implementing resource locks acts like placing a "Do Not Touch" sign on critical files while still allowing changes to their performance characteristics and size. In this task, we are focusing on modifying our architecture diagram. Let's explore moving resource AZ-104-03A disk 1 from task 1 to task 2, akin to rearranging furniture in a room for better flow. Building on that, think of it as shifting your chess pieces mid-game. Here, we move the same disk into task 3. Now let's delve deeper. Introduce AZ-104-03A disk 2 into task 3 within resource group AZ-104-03A AG3, much like adding a new layer to our architecture cake. Lastly, consider the action of locking and then removing the delete option for AZ-104-03A delete lock. It's similar to placing a "Do Not Disturb" sign on your door, but eventually taking it off when you're ready. Welcome to our session on administering Azure resources, where you'll become a maestro of managing cloud environments. Think of it this way: just like conducting an orchestra requires knowing every instrument and how they work together, administering Azure resources involves understanding various services and their interactions. Now let's explore the basics of resource groups, akin to sections in our orchestra, which help organize related resources efficiently. Moving on, we'll delve into Azure virtual machines, which are like individual musicians, each playing a crucial role in delivering powerful computing capabilities. Let's dive into understanding how to configure and manage Azure resources effectively. Think of configuring Azure resources with tools as similar to using a chef's knife set in the kitchen. Each tool has its own specialty for different tasks. Imagine you're a conductor orchestrating various instruments. That's how you configure and manage Azure resources with different tools. Topic: Configure Azure resources with tools. Start by understanding how these resources can be configured using ARM templates. Think of it as creating a musical score for your cloud services. We'll also explore Labs 03B, where you'll get hands-on experience managing resources with these templates. Moving on to optional exercises, Labs 03C and 03D provide opportunities to use Azure PowerShell and Azure CLI, akin to switching instruments for different effects. By the end of this, you'll be well-versed in directing your cloud orchestra. To configure Azure resources, think of it like setting up a toolbox. Using the right tools ensures everything runs smoothly and efficiently. Let's explore how these tools streamline resource management and deployment in Azure. Our learning objectives today focus on Azure resources and the various tools used to manage them. Think of it this way: just as a toolbox helps you fix different things around your house, administration tools help manage Azure environments. We'll compare 4 distinct student topics for these tools, starting with a demonstration of the Azure portal. Imagine the Azure portal as your control center for all cloud activities, similar to how a cockpit controls an airplane. Building on that, we'll explore Azure Cloud Shell, which functions like having command line access directly within your browser, streamlining administrative tasks. Finally, we'll wrap up with a learning recap to consolidate what's been covered. Think of the Azure portal as your all-in-one toolbox, where you can visually manage and view resources with ease. It provides a personalized, unified hub that supports training and documentation while offering a mobile app for on-the-go access to Cloud Shell, an interactive, browser-accessible environment that uses Bash or PowerShell commands automatically authenticated for each session. On that, Azure Cloud Shell serves as your temporary command center, perfect for scripting tasks with its cross-platform capabilities and times out after 20 minutes for security. Lastly, Azure PowerShell and CLI AZ VM Restart offer a more familiar coding experience, ideal for repeatable deployments and handling complex administrative tasks through command line programs. Imagine the Azure portal as a personal control panel, much like an airplane cockpit where you can view everything at a glance. Customizing your dashboard allows you to prioritize what's most important, making it easier to manage resources efficiently. Now let's explore how searching and locating specific resources can streamline your workflow. Finally, don't forget about the support and help tickets. These are your lifeline for assistance whenever needed. To kick things off, imagine you're entering a new workspace on Google Cloud Platform with the topic, Cloud Shell. This is your command line interface in the cloud. Access it easily to start configuring storage options tailored for your needs, just like organizing a toolbox before starting any project. Next, let's dive into exploring either PowerShell or Bash within this environment. Think of them as your Swiss Army knives for coding tasks. You can also effortlessly upload or download files to and from your configured storage, streamlining your workflow seamlessly. If you'd like, the topic, Cloud Editor, is available too, providing a flexible platform for editing your code right in the browser. Let's recap our journey through managing Azure resources using various tools. Think of it as a toolkit where each tool has its unique role. We've started by mastering the Azure portal, which is like your command center in the cloud, topic, Azure portal. Then we explored PowerShell, serving as your scripting powerhouse for automating tasks, topic, introduction to PowerShell. Moving forward, we took on the CLI, a versatile line tool that allows you to control resources efficiently via commands, topic, control with the CLI. Finally, we learned how to streamline and organize everything using Azure Resource Manager, acting as an architect's blueprint for your cloud environment, topic, Azure Resource Manager. To ensure you're on track, don't forget to test your understanding through check your knowledge questions and explore additional study materials. Think of Azure Resource Manager, templates as blueprints for building your cloud architecture. These JSON files define the resources you want to deploy in a consistent, repeatable way. Now let's explore how you can configure these resources with templates. We are diving into the world of Azure templates, starting with understanding their JSON template schema. Think of it like the blueprint for your cloud infrastructure. Next, let's explore the JSON template parameters which allow you to customize these blueprints based on different needs. Now, consider Azure Bicep files, a more user-friendly way to write these templates, much like using a simplified language that still speaks the same cloud dialect. For hands-on experience, we'll look at demonstration, quick start templates, providing practical examples of what you can build. To wrap it up, let's revisit our learning recap. Managing Azure identities and governance is crucial, as it lets us automate the deployment of resources using templates, modify templates to suit specific requirements, deploy them seamlessly, and save these deployments for future use. When deploying resources in Azure, templates offer several key advantages. Think of them as a blueprint for your cloud infrastructure. They improve consistency and promote reuse by reducing manual, error-prone tasks. Now let's explore how these templates express complex deployments. They articulate requirements through code, provide validation tasks, and are modular so they can be linked together seamlessly. Building on that idea, templates simplify orchestration and ensure production quality assurance. Think of a JSON template schema as the blueprint for deploying resources in Azure. It outlines every component needed, from parameters and variables to functions and resources, all written in JSON format using key-value pairs. Each element plays a critical role in defining how your deployment will be structured. Let's dive into JSON template parameters. Think of these as customizable settings in a recipe, where you can choose specific ingredients before baking your dish. In our case, we have two key parameters, one for the VM's username, labeled admin username, and another for its password, known as admin password. These are defined in a structured way with types and descriptions to ensure clarity and security. Specifically, admin username is of type string with a description indicating it's the username for the VM, while admin password is a more sensitive type called secure string, clearly noted for its role as a password. Let's explore how Azure Bicep files offer a simpler syntax for writing templates, making them more intuitive and efficient. Think of it like crafting smaller Lego modules that can be easily referenced from a main template, this modular approach allows you to automatically detect dependencies between your resources. Building on that, with the help of a Visual Studio Code extension, you get validation and IntelliSense, which acts as an intelligent assistant guiding you through coding. For instance, in a bicep file, defining a resource like Microsoft storage/storage accounts is straightforward. You specify properties such as name, location, tags, kind, and SKU within the template. Think of it like finding your favorite recipe in an online cookbook. In this demonstration, we'll start by locating the Azure Quick Start template gallery. Just as recipes guide you through making dishes, these templates help deploy resources quickly using either JSON or bicep files. Let's dive into a recap of our learning journey with Azure Resource Manager templates. Imagine these templates as blueprints that help you create and deploy Azure resources using JSON and templates. Now, think of infrastructure as code like building blocks. We introduced Bicep to simplify this process. You had the chance to get hands-on experience by building your first Bicep template in a sandbox environment. We'll start with Lab 03B, which teaches you how to manage Azure resources using ARM templates. Think of these templates as blueprints that streamline deploying and configuring your cloud infrastructure efficiently. Now let's explore Lab 03C, where we dive into managing Azure resources using Azure PowerShell. It's like having a Swiss Army knife for automation in the Azure environment, allowing for precise scripting and execution of commands. Lastly, in Lab 03D, you learn to handle Azure resources with Azure CLI, which offers a powerful command line interface for controlling your cloud assets swiftly. We've covered how to provision and organize Azure resources, so now it's time to dive into managing them with Azure Resource Manager, ARM, templates. First, let's review what an ARM template does for deploying an Azure managed disk. Think of it like a blueprint that ensures everything is set up just right. Now, let's roll up our sleeves and actually create a managed disk using this ARM template, much like following a recipe in cooking. Finally, we'll examine how the deployment goes by reviewing the ARM template-based process to ensure everything was executed flawlessly. Imagine you're an architect designing a complex building. In Lab 03B, you sketch out an architecture diagram with two tasks to tackle. Task 1 is like creating your blueprint. Think of it as setting up resource groups AZ-104-03A, AG1 and disks AZ-104-03A, disk 1, much like laying the foundation. Then, for task 2, it's time to bring that blueprint to life by deploying another set of resources, AG1 and a new disk, labeled AZ-104-03B, disk 1. You'll be editing JSON templates along the way. These are your building plans in digital form. Now, let's explore how you can create, edit, and deploy these components to construct your virtual architecture. Imagine you're a wizard, and PowerShell is your spellbook. Building on that idea, let's explore managing Azure resources through PowerShell instead of just using the portal. You'll use the Azure Cloud Shell to dodge installing any modules. First up, Task 1, start your PowerShell session in Azure Cloud Shell like opening your magic window. Then, for Task 2, conjure a resource group and an Azure managed disk with those new spells. Finally, in Task 3, fine-tune that managed disk settings with more PowerShell wizardry. Imagine building a city from scratch. Your architecture diagram is like the blueprint for this virtual metropolis. In this lab, you tackle tasks 1 to 3, laying out resources and infrastructure with precision. Each task, such as AZ-104-03C, AG1 or AZ-104-03C, disk 1, represents different components of your cloud environment, akin to constructing various districts in our city. Let's dive into managing Azure resources with Azure CLI, focusing on provisioning and organizing them efficiently. After familiarizing yourself with Azure Portal, Resource Manager templates, and PowerShell, it's time to harness the power of Azure CLI via Azure Cloud Shell's Bash environment. Start by initiating a Bash session in Azure Cloud Shell, followed by creating a resource group and manage disk using Azure CLI commands. Lastly, fine-tune your managed disk settings through Azure CLI for optimal configuration. In Lab 03D, we are constructing an architecture diagram through a series of tasks. Task 1 involves mapping out the network topology, much like sketching a blueprint for our virtual environment. Moving on to Task 2, you'll be integrating various Azure services, similar to adding different rooms in a house. For Task 3, focus on optimizing resources and cost management, akin to ensuring that all parts work efficiently within your design.
Watching, guys. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for the next modules for day 3. This is the end of day 2. Take care. Bye-bye.